So, do you ever wonder where all of the stories and memories, maybe you could even say, of all of these creatures that are no longer or have never been, depending on your take, in our physical world? You know what I'm talking about. The unicorns of the world, the dragons, fairies, gnomes. What am I talking about? The elemental realm. I've touched on it in the past because the Djinn I find very fascinating. The Djinn are very powerful and have a lot of, shall I say, innate abilities. They can literally shapeshift into almost anything. Yeah, the Djinn, also known as the genie in the bottle. They're they're as real as you or I. Just because you can't see them in your physical world, well, that doesn't mean they're not real. Most of the physical reality that what we call physical reality is not accessible to our five senses. And the stuff that is accessible to our five senses, our brain filters out most of it. So our five senses are tied to this tiny little sliver of reality that we call a physical existence. And then all of the stuff in that tiny little sliver, we only get a sliver of that because our brain filters out most of it. So, yeah, those elemental beings are absolutely real. They're just not sharing the same type of physical space you or I are in this form. But you bet you know what, they are quite real. I mean, just think about it. Think of all of the different people all throughout the world, throughout the ages, who have all separately have these stories and pictures and descriptions of these same types of beings. It's not a coincidence. It's not a story that just like someone made up and it just like spread like crazy. No, they're echoes from an older time period. Back in the day, sometime before the Great Flood, it was a lot different around here. The energy was different. The veil that's thinning now between this world and what you might call the next world, the veil that's thinning post 2012, we didn't blow ourselves up, Mandela effect. That thinning veil was thin before the flood to the point where there was regular encounters with these types of beings in the physical. Let's just say humanity wasn't as prone to violence during some of our past history. We've gone through stages, but in some of our past history, we were not very violent. We were much more at peace with ourselves. Our DNA was different. Our thought patterns were different. A lot of the negative influences on the human vehicle was not around in parts of our history. Talking about humanity like going way back. So, yes, there are times in our history, as we understand history, meaning that based on the physical time being linear, when I reference history in this manner, yes, we were interacting with these beings. And it's been a long time since we've had direct contact, but the memories were there. That's why they're in our stories today. Not all of it's totally real. There are going to be certain variations of some of the beings that we don't encounter anymore that the story kind of built up on its own. And yes, I'm not saying it's absolutely literal. I'm saying a lot of it's far more literal than you would ever believe. It's real stuff. More recently, we've had encounters with the half human, half animal type creatures, like the Minotaur, for example. Ancient Greek and ancient Roman mythology talk about these beings. They were real, not 100% exactly as described, but hybrid beings. Experiments were done before the flood. Humans were very genetically knowledgeable and advanced, too much so, in my opinion, because I think that's one of the fatal flaws during that pre flood time where we started trying to play God, so to speak, creating these beings. I hear that they were trying to combine elements like fire and water to make a new element. Like that was like where they were headed before they were wiped. But anyway, that brings me to another point. People's paranoia and revulsion of the idea of genetics and cloning, specifically cloning. Why do you think humans are so turned off by that idea? Because as a collective race, we remember it was really bad. Good things are not going to come out of it. The Great Flood happened shortly after we got heavy into that stuff. So yeah, just uh, just a couple things to think about. See you guys later.